Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We are now about to start a press conference, so I would ask all the delegates who want to stay, but please switch off your mobile phones and be silent for the entire duration of this press conference. And if you prefer to leave, then this is the moment. My name is Jean Rodriguez. I'm the head of the communication department of the UN Economic Commission for Europe, and I will be moderating this press conference. And I think we're now ready to start. I will immediately give the floor to our distinguished speakers, and after their opening addresses, then the floor will be to the media for your questions. I would like then to invite Mr. Kostas Kadis, Minister of Agriculture, Natural Resources and Environment of Cyprus, to take the floor. Mr. Minister.
Thank you. It's really with great excitement that we are here today on the opening of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe 9th Environment for Europe Ministerial Conference. The preparations of the Republic of Cyprus in the past 4 years, with the enormous support of the Committee on Environmental Policy of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, have brought us here today, hosting this pivotal conference. Our aspiration is, on the one hand, to carry out the conference successfully, and on the other hand, to deliver outcomes which will enhance the efforts of the governments, organizations, academic institutions, and the industry and other involved stakeholders of the pan-European region to effectively protect the environment and to support the development of sustainable, resilient, and inclusive communities. It is a great honor for Cyprus to host this conference, which takes place for the first time in the Mediterranean region, with participants beyond the geographic limits of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. We welcome today ministers of environment, education, infrastructure, tourism, foreign affairs, as well as participants from the Mediterranean, the Middle East and Asia, and of course, Europe. The reasoning behind our extended invite is the environmental challenges that the invited countries are facing are common. Our key objective is also common: to fully achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda of the United Nations. This conference is an opportunity to work together and share experiences and best practices at the interministerial level for delivering sustainable solutions in the fields of the environment, circular economy, tourism, infrastructure, and education that will transform the planet. The 9th Ministerial Conference marks 30 years of environmental cooperation in the pan-European region. The discussions during the plenaries and the 8 sessions of the conference will provide significant input for important policy documents like the Ministerial Declaration for the Environment and the Ministerial Statement for Education for Sustainable Development. These political documents will be adopted by all the participating countries by the closure of the conference and will provide the supporting framework for developing our national strategies. The first thematic area of the conference focuses on sustainable infrastructure. Greening the economy by investing in sustainable infrastructure is becoming more important in this economic, environmental, climatic, and social crisis era we are going through. During this time, when governments around the world focus on recovering their economies and on building their resilience for the current and future crisis, it is crucial to ensure that this recovery follows a sustainable path. We need to adapt systemic and life cycle approaches from the early conceptual and strategic planning stages of infrastructure development and invest in nature-based solutions. This approach will minimize potential environmental impact from the development of resource-intensive infrastructure, while at the same time, it will ensure alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals. The environmental challenges of the tourism sector will be discussed during the second thematic area of the conference. Tourism destination countries like Cyprus face additional environmental challenges, especially in the sector of waste management. The adoption of the circular economy concept across all economic sectors, and especially the tourism sector, and the transition of the business models from linear to circular, create additional opportunities. Circular economy enhances the sector's sustainability, productivity, employability, and competitiveness, while reducing their environmental footprint. The relevant sessions of the conference will discuss ways to support the tourism industry as a main driver for economic development, while working with various stakeholders to adapt circular economy tourism models. Before I conclude, I would like to thank Mrs. Olga Algayerova, the Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Europe, and acknowledge the tremendous work undertaken by all the team of UNESE, especially by the Director of the Division of Environment, the Chief of Section of the Environment Division, the Chair of the Committee of Environmental Policy, and all the team for the United Nations, from the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. We really appreciate their excellent collaboration with the Cyprus government. And I also want to thank the Cypriot colleagues. Firstly, my colleague, Mr. Prodromou, the Minister of Education, Sports and Youth, the team from his ministry, the team from the Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Development and Environment, and all the involved governmental organizations and companies and of the private sector, as well as our volunteers for working hard for realizing this conference. I look forward to the discussions and the outcomes of the conference that will definitely contribute towards transforming our planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Kadis, for these opening statements. I would now like to invite Mr. Prodromos Prodromou, Minister of Education, Sport and Youth of Cyprus, to take the floor. Mr. Minister.
Thank you. I also welcome you with great pleasure to this press conference. As we already know, several ministers, high-level officials, and over 1,000 participants from the public and the private sectors, academia, and the youth sector, coming from 60 countries, as well as representatives from more than 150 international and regional organizations and NGOs, are here in Nicosia to discuss and adopt policies on three main issues: education for sustainable development, sustainable infrastructure, and sustainable tourism. Of course, our country, the Republic of Cyprus, is proud to host this event, and we have to thank again the United Economic Commission for Europe, the UNESE. And of course, it's an honor to organize this conference for the first time in the Mediterranean region. As the largest political platform for communication on the environment and the sustainable development between the Commission's countries, this 9th ministerial meeting held in Nicosia acquires a symbolic character. It seeks to send a message that it is necessary for countries to cooperate effectively more than ever before in order to address the greatest challenges facing our planet, which is none other than climate change, climate crisis. Our action concerning the environment can only be collective. We have to act now and to act together. Conference participants will be given the opportunity to share experiences, to interact, and commit on shared plans which can transform our planet. Despite the fact that the conference's main focus is the environment in large, education for sustainable development is given a special emphasis in the sense that the new strategy framework for education for sustainable development will be part of the discussions. This education strategy focuses on the goals of the global 2030 agenda and takes into account all other parallel regional and international policies related to quality in education, with the ultimate goal of establishing educational organizations that will empower young people and civil society in sustainable attitudes in sustainability issues. We aim at educational organizations, schools and other structures that will support the effort to create sustainable, fair and prosperous societies. We adopt to this end a holistic institutional approach. We are all experiencing the consequences of environmental degradation and destruction, collectively as societies, but also individually as citizens. Education is our hope, but also can be the driving force for action. This summit is an excellent opportunity for all of us to come together and commit to international and regional cooperation and action for a better world. At the same time, on the occasion of the summit, a high-level ministerial event on the Mediterranean strategy on education for sustainable development and its action plan towards 2030 will be held. Its goal is the adoption of the Mediterranean Strategy for Education for Sustainable Development 2030, setting a common course for our countries and our people. Youth will also be in the spotlight during this conference, since the new implementation framework of the UNESCO Education for Sustainable Development Strategy 2021-2030, that will be adopted by the Ministers of Education, aims to bring together the past and the future by actively engaging young people. More than 60 youth organizations will participate in the ministerial discussions and will decisively define their own role as contributors in designing our policies, our common policies. The conference also provides a unique opportunity for interdepartmental and interministerial collaboration, which is the key to confronting the emerging challenges and risks and that we are facing as humanity because of the climate crisis. The aim is to strengthen this collaboration by bringing together education and environment ministers, as well as ministers from other fields such as tourism, innovation, infrastructure, foreign affairs, etc. The establishment of synergies and alliances between ministries, countries, and organizations plays a pivotal role in realizing our sustainable development goals. Ladies and gentlemen, the role of media, of course, is crucial for the communication of the message of the conference, which is to transform our planet. We need to transform our plans. I am confident that together we will be successful in spreading the message of responsibility and of the need to act now. I would like, of course, to thank the our guest here, but we are also guests of the UNICE in this context, Mrs. Algayerova, the Executive Secretary of the UNICE, also Mrs. Sonia Layton-Cohen, the Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme. I would like to address our thanks to all those people that worked very hardly in order to be here with this conference in this beautiful setup. The staff from the Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Development and Environment, and of course from the Ministry of Education, Sport and Youth, as well as all the other contributors. And I would like, of course, to thank you for your presence in this press conference, noting that the 9th Environment for Europe Ministerial Conference concerns everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Prodromou. I would now like to invite Olga Algayerova, Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, to take the floor. Dear Olga.
Thank you, Jean. Your Excellencies, Ministers, dear colleagues from media, good afternoon, and thank you for coming today. I wish to bring your attention to the 7th Pan-European Environmental Assessment Report, jointly prepared by the UNEC and UNEP. The report covers 54 countries across the region, from the European Union, EFTA member countries, the Balkans, Caucasus, Eastern Europe and Central Asia. So together with the Deputy Executive Director of UNEP, Sonia, we will present to you now some of the main findings of this report. So let me lead you through the 4 messages, the main parts. It is air, water, circular, and education. The overall message from the report is that despite some progress, including in cleaning the air and in expanding protected areas, countries in the region need to urgently reduce emissions, pollution, and waste, and reverse the biodiversity loss. And the main message is my favorite, fostering circular economy, as mentioned also by distinguished minister. And in EC, we have doing a great job on circular economy, and sustainable infrastructure offer solutions. So let's go to the air pollution. Some progress has been made through the implementation of policies to tackle air pollution, in particular under our UNEC Air Convention and its protocols, but still air pollution remains the greatest health risk in the region. Between 2009 and 2018, 41 European countries recorded a 13% reduction in premature deaths due to the long-term exposure to fine particulate matters. Yet, those particulate matter 2.5 concentration continue to exceed the 2005 World Health Organization air quality guideline across the entire region. So in response, the assessment calls for additional measures, including the use of further sharpening of the best available techniques to prevent emissions of particulate matter, additionally nitrogen dioxide and hydrocarbons by the industry, and to reduce emissions from the traffic by implementing emission standards known as Euro 6 and Euro 7. All countries should align ambient air quality standards with the latest WHO guidelines. So, dear colleagues, let's go to the water challenges. So, again, cooperation remains the key to address the water challenges. The region's river basins, lakes, and aquifers are subject to multiple stresses, and climate change is delivering additional challenges for freshwater quantity as well as quality, such as floods, droughts, waterborne diseases, biodiversity changes in aquatic ecosystem. Pollution and urban and industrial wastewater discharges remain significant and persistent organic contaminants are of public health concern. Together with reinforced measures to conserve water, improve efficiency of its use, such as through precision agriculture in irrigated crop production, for instance, and to harness nature-based solutions for water retention basins. The potential of non-conventional water sources, such as recycled water, should be explored. This report that is available for you online also stresses that water resources management is more efficient at the basin level and that international cooperation on transboundary waters is required for effective environmental protection and benefit sharing, an approach facilitated by our UN Water Convention. So, a few words on a circular economy that will help to address growing waste and resource use. The amount of waste generated continues to grow. Recycling rates differ significantly among countries and are particularly low in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Municipal waste recycling rates above 45% exist only in a few EU countries and in Switzerland. E-waste collection and recycling are highly deficient across all subregions. In response, so what do? The assessment urges governments to step up waste prevention in production and consumption and repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing, including through financial incentives such as tax relief. A pan-European e-waste management partnership would enable the recovery of valuable resources. Over the past half century, the extraction of minerals has tripled globally, with the extraction and processing of natural resources accounting for over 90% of biodiversity loss and water stress, and about 50% of climate change impacts. Governments in the region should adopt a circular, resource-efficient economy approach and strengthen management of raw materials, including, for example, through the application of, again, the UNEC framework classification for resources and or the UNEC resource management system. Last but not least, definitely is the education for sustainable development that can strengthen environmental governance. The environmental governance system in the region remains fragmented and gaps persist in the implementation of good environmental governance, including in relation to public participation, transparency, responsiveness, effectiveness, and efficiency. Among solutions, the assessment points to further capitalizing on the regional strategy for education for sustainable development to endow populations with capacities to play an active role in environmental governance. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude on my side, almost halfway through Agenda 2030, the findings of this report must be a real wake-up call for the region. The historic drought the region faced this summer is announcing what we should expect in the years to come. We cannot wait any longer to tackle the triple planetary crisis affecting climate, nature, and pollution. As highlighted in the report, the UN has developed multiple tools and approaches to cut pollution, step up environmental protection, reduce resource use, and foster the shift to a circular economy. Their implementation must be significantly accelerated, as we are all witnessing it in the current push for energy sobriety. This will require urgent and bold political commitment and behavioral changes from all of us before it is too late, simply. I would like to highlight, in this regard, your role as media is crucial to convey the findings of science to policymakers and to the public at large. So, before I really conclude, again, I would like to thank the government of Cyprus for hospitality, to both ministers and ministries present here, to the teams for the highly professional organization of this ministerial conference. Thank you for your attention. If any questions, I'm happy to respond. Thanks.
Thank you very much, dear Olga. And I would now like to give the floor to Ms. Sonia Liton-Koni, Deputy Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme. Madame, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Excellencies, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank Olga for those quite inspiring remarks that comprehensively set out what we have in the assessment report. And let me frame this a little bit in a wider context. Last week, if you looked up at the sky or perhaps on your screen as it was live streamed, you might have witnessed how humanity, for the first time, impacted an asteroid to try to shift its trajectory. It was shooting practice to prepare ourselves for when an asteroid actually threatens our planet. But who knows when that will happen? And will we have a planet to protect by then? And if so, will it be a healthy planet? We seem to have become our own meteorite, and we have brought a triple planetary crisis upon ourselves. We pollute our land, our air, and our water. We modify the climate with our emissions. We are putting species to extinction. The world is facing a once-in-a-generation cost of living crisis, including rising energy prices. This is a very powerful wake-up call about the links between natural resources, security, economy, and human well-being. The crisis has revealed to all citizens of Europe and the world how strongly interlinked countries are and different sectors of societies are. This crisis forces us to see that it is not possible to take energy, food, safety for granted. But in every crisis, there is an opportunity. Countries are making and will need to make decisions in order to seize the opportunities. We hope that they will also think about future generations when doing so. Renewable energy provides security, reducing exposure to the volatility of fossil fuel prices. Now is therefore the time to accelerate the shift to clean energy. We've been good at creating problems, it is true, but we're also getting better at solving them. And this is why we are all here. This is why representatives from across the pan-European region have come together in Cyprus, and we are grateful. The first step before solving a problem is to identify it, which is why the pan-European assessment by the UNECE and UNEP is so relevant. It's a really special X-ray, if you want to think of it, that will help us understand our illness on the planet. And it's also a prescription giving us several medical options. According to the assessment, all countries in the pan-European region have committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but net emissions are still rising. Efforts and achievements are unevenly distributed through the region. National commitments on the Paris Agreement were renewed by 35 countries with more ambitious targets. However, some countries still do not have quantifiable commitments. Decarbonization is becoming a very strong narrative, but action is lagging behind. The use of renewables increased in 29 countries in the pan-European region in the period from 2013 to 2017, but almost 80% on average of the total final energy consumption comes from fossil fuels. If done right, sustainable infrastructure can have multiple benefits for a green post-COVID recovery and the longer-term green economic transition. But we need more integrated and resilient approaches to plan and build a nature-positive infrastructure. Every dollar spent, or should we say every euro spent, on sustainable and resilient infrastructure, including nature-based infrastructure, can generate 4 euros in return. And while tourism is the backbone of many pan-European countries, including the Mediterranean economies, the sector also contributes heavily to the triple planetary crisis. In peak season, tourism is responsible for about 40% increase in marine litter entering the Mediterranean Sea in a business as usual approach. Tourism will see an increase of 154% in energy consumption and of 152% in water consumption by 2050. We are aware that using technological innovation to support a circular transition and improve resource efficiency could allow Europe to generate a net economic benefit of about euro 1.8 trillion by 2030. The science is clear. Transforming the tourism sector will require a circular and life cycle approach to progress on economic and social and economic targets. Several countries in the region, as the report will share, are implementing sustainable tourism projects to accelerate the transition to sustainable consumption and production patterns, including the use of renewable energy sources, development of green infrastructure, and other measures that support climate action and environmental sustainability. Popular destinations that have suffered from over-tourism are seeking business value from solutions that help to preserve nature, natural, and cultural assets and allow tourism to thrive in the long run. So, we have gathered in Nicosia to share our visions of the state of the environment in this region. As we think about the sustainable and resilient solutions for infrastructure and the future of tourism, it's important to remember that this is just not about ending environmental threats. It's also about creating new economic opportunities and alleviating poverty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Executive Director of UNEP. I would now like to open the floor to journalists for questions. And before giving you the floor, if you could please introduce yourself so that our speakers know which media you're working from. Thank you. Sir?
From the Associated Press, Vanello Sejuestis. Just a question about energy and net emissions. We've seen recently, or it appears to be so, that many countries are switching back to fossil fuels in light of the situation, the fallout from the war. Is there any thinking on your part, perhaps to extend the targets or revise your recommendations to take these issues into account? Because, of course, this is not going to go away anytime soon. We've seen countries switching back to coal. There's a great rush for gas, oil, research. So how do you reconcile this with your report?
Oh, would you like to? Would you like?
I can start shortly and then maybe you can complete. I don't think it's needed to extend any deadlines or thresholds. You are right. From the most human-caused methane emissions, that is much more potent than the CO2 itself, regarding the climate warming effect, they come from three sectors: fossil fuels, waste, and agriculture. And in the fossil fuel sector, oil and gas extraction, processing, and distribution account for 23%, and coal mining accounts for 12% of emissions. So readily available measures can reduce 2030 methane emissions by 30% if fully implemented, and nearly half of these technologies are available to the fossil fuel sector. Many of these technologies are zero to low cost solutions. So we have available tools. I can name you UNEC best practice guidance for effective methane management in the oil and gas sector. Then again, this methane is capturing methane is a more natural gas that we can use, you know. So therefore we issued our UNEC guidance on recovery use of methane from abandoned coal mines, operating coal mines, in which the guidance helps address leaks, but also enhance safety. So we have many tools. We need just to use them. So as we are telling this crisis, of course, is bad situation for the region, but regarding the global warming, regarding the emissions and using more the fossil fuels, the trend, but it is at the same time the opportunity to go to the renewables, use more solar, use more water, use more wind, use available tools that we are producing, you know, use really technological solutions, be innovative. So this is the way we want to go. We don't want to extend the thresholds, but Sonia, maybe.
I agree with you. Very well said. You know, for a very long time, we as humanity have kept putting off the challenges, and now they're with us everywhere that we look. We feel it, we live it. And so the answer is not to change the target. The answer is to find a way, being sympathetic to the shock that we're feeling, of embracing the opportunities and accelerating what we can. We do have tools, we have will, and we are going to have to find a way to walk with balance between managing a very current threat, but keeping our eyes on the long-term objectives that we have, which is to secure our planet for ourselves and our future generations.
If I may just also tell, look, we are approaching COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. It's about climate change. So COP26 was before the war and situation. So we have seen the global methane pledge launch, and we saw many pledges. And what happened? You know, so we cannot relate everything to the situation that we see today. And if we just prolong and extend the deadline, so we never reach the goal that we need. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't see who was first. Ladies, please take the floor.
I can start, I hope, colleagues. So first of all, I recommend you to read our report, okay? This is what we were speaking here about, maybe 30 minutes, with the recommendations. So you have assessment where we are in the region. You can see why we are there, what are the roots of that, and how to address them. So you see it everything. You see, I was reading how we improve the quality of the air, how we prolong the life expectancy due to improved quality of the air. But it's not enough. You know, Agenda 2030 is in 8 years, you know, we'll be counting what it has been done. So I can recommend you, for your question, just read the report. Everything is there with facts, with scientific data, and what we have to do with recommendations. So it's really a good report. We were presenting here to you. And we need to accelerate. We need to triple the efforts. We need to triple the investment, political will, actions. So it's my assessment. So just work.
So the assessment basically says, done, but there is more to do. That's what the assessment is. And in so doing, I think it's actually a beacon of encouragement for the pan-European region as it is here, because we have identified solutions. We have provided examples of what other countries are doing. And in so doing, others can look at that and apply them to their local context. So that's why I talked about the prescription, because we are not coming with a doom and gloom approach that it's all bad and there is nothing that we can do. Yeah. It is about the fact that we need to do more. We have made commitments. We have gotten very good at speaking the language, decarbonization. We talk about methane. We talk about the emissions, the circularity, but we need now to put a push on putting them in practice. So that's what I hope you and those who read the report will take from it, is that we give you facts, because you always need facts to make decisions, but we also give solutions on how more of the countries in the region can take it forward.
If I may, last year, if I speak on behalf of UNEC, we had our commission session in April last year, where the topic was circular sustainable development. All 56 member states of UNEC took the commitments, the concrete, if you go to our website, because we cannot prescribe one recipe for all countries is the same. Each country, Cyprus is different from Canada, of course, right? So we put together maybe 50 or maybe 70 different tools on improving circularity of economies in our region, and countries committed to use them. We know that the global circularity is about 8.6%. Otherwise, this 92 resting we are using increasingly and linearly. So we need to increase the circularity. And in the EU is 11.2%. In the eastern part of the region is lower. So we want to bring all the countries in the region to the higher circularity by using our concrete tools. So we had very frank and detailed discussion with our member states. Next April, we have our topic is digital and green. So if we merge the circular with digital, it again must boost something, but countries need to implement. We can help with standards, norms, legislative tools, but implementation is on the countryside. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. You're asking about Cyprus. I have no problem to answer, but have no misunderstanding. First of all, here and in the context of the discussion about the Mediterranean strategy for sustainable development education, we have to give some emphasis altogether that in our educational systems, that again are not everywhere exactly the same. However, we're going to use a new approach in order to give our educational system, all our educators at all levels, to give them incentives to capitalize on what we know about learner-centered approaches that are applied in different ways in different countries, to use real-life experience inside the context of the education for sustainable development, to spread good practices. For example, in Cyprus, we have some good practices. You can see next to the other room, there is an exhibition. There is our cooperation with the organization ACTI, using using oil from the households to recycle it and give a lesson at the same time to the schools and get some revenues. Those revenues in our schools are used to improve their buildings, their pedagogical means. Concerning, and of course, at the same time, to give the message that we need a holistic approach for education, for environmental education, to engage a relation between schools and other institutions, not only schools, all educational institutions and the community. We have good examples of cooperation and bringing inside the context of the broader education for sustainable development professionals, NGOs locally, and this kind of cooperation and involvement of the communities with schools gives also another interesting result, that there is also the development of environmental wise identity locally. In Cyprus, for example, each school it's free to establish its own approach regarding the local problems or what it seems to be more attractive to the students, and define a plan for each year for the education education for sustainable development. And what you are asking specifically about the alternative energy, we have already a plan. It's almost accomplished with the Electricity Authority of Cyprus, and we have panels, photovoltaic panels, on almost every school. But we need more general approach to initiate in the schools not only a program by the central state, by the ministries in every country, but in the context of the approach of holistic approach for the education for sustainable development, to think about an intervention also on the school buildings, installations, choices that are made locally to be environment friendly, and mostly not only the results themselves, but mostly to give the message and the consciousness of an environmental citizenship. You will follow also tomorrow the discussion about the approach for the education, sustainable development education in the Mediterranean context.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. There was a question here at the back.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Marius from Capital TV. How do you find the correct balance between keeping the ocean safe and the environmental implementations like you've mentioned, and also mentioning the tourism factor? As you well know, Cyprus's main priority or income is from the tourism sector as a tourist country, and it's the number one selling point Cyprus has. And with the figures mentioned of 156% of energy going up during the tourism peak season, and 154%, if I'm not mistaken, with the water consumption, how do you find the correct balances in order to environmentally friendly keep Cyprus, and then on the other hand, not affect the tourism market, which is the number one priority, if I'm not mistaken, in Cyprus, as the biggest financial input that's available? And a second point is to keep the ocean nice and clean, and to do everything possible, especially in the Mediterranean Sea, that touches 3 continents between Europe, Africa, and the Asia. The problem with Cyprus is the Republic of Cyprus, the government here, are bound by UN and EU legislations that protect the country to do what it's obliged to do for this particular forecast. However, though, with the Cyprus situation ongoing and with the Turkish illegal occupation still continuing in Cyprus, the Republic of Cyprus has only so much it can do to protect the territory and the water bounds of the Republic of Cyprus. The section that is illegally occupied by the Turkish forces, the Republic of Cyprus has unfortunately no control. So how would you tackle a small island like Cyprus that unfortunately is divided into two due to the invasion, and the south side, which is the Republic of Cyprus, doing everything possible to be a good and solid member and bounding member to all these rules and regulations? But 500 meters from where we are now, it seems that the occupying side has absolutely no particular input in helping and assisting in protecting the Mediterranean Sea. Thank you very much. Question 2.
Ministers?
Regarding the first question, I don't think that it's an easy task. Definitely, we have to promote awareness. I think that there is awareness, but we have to strengthen our efforts in order to, let's say, persuade the visitors, the tourists, to lower their ecological footprint. And this is not an issue that one country can carry out alone. And that's why the sustainable tourism is an issue that will be discussed, and the focus of this conference will be placed on this issue. And I'm sure that we will learn from each other, and we will discuss best practices on how we can achieve what you have mentioned. Now, the second, of course, is more a political issue. Of course, European Union can play a role through the assistance that provides to the regime in the north. I mean, there must be some prerequisites in order to provide this support, and I would say that this support could only be provided when these prerequisites are fulfilled. So this is the only thing that I could say from our side.
Yes, of course, the question is not for the context of this international conference. However, this is a case of an illegal regime, a regime of occupation. There are no rules, there is no understanding, no international framework. Okay, it happens. Maybe it will happen also in other occupied areas, in other countries. In this case, the solution for every challenge and every problem would be, first of all, to resolve the problem itself. No more have occupation and legal part of a country not functioning according to the laws and international rules. Okay, it's very difficult. For us, it's the big problem, but the announcement is simple as that. And concerning the balance between tourism and not polluting the sea, in the Mediterranean there is no ocean. However, there is pollution. This balance is a very, very difficult question, and we need to find some answers. And this is why we are together. And okay, it's not in my area of the education, but being here together, all the Mediterranean countries, most of them having a special interest in tourism, it's the right place to discuss and find ways to reconcile as much as possible. From the one side, we have the pressure that the dependence of the economy, of the GDP on tourism is existing. Is the life of millions of people. It's not easy to change, to push a button, but at the same time to initiate some policies and take some, having new framework of actions in order to minimize the harm of massive activities like tourism. And tourism is huge multiplier. If we think that the population is getting double or triple in just like that, and it's not only the population, it's the transport, it's everything. So we need here to think, and a framework like Yunus recommendations is useful for everybody, and to exchange views, etc. Thank you.
Thank you to both ministers for their answers. I'm afraid we're approaching the end of our time for this press conference. Should there be one more final question quickly, we can take it. And if not, we will just thank you for attending this press conference and for your interest in all the issues that have been discussed, and looking forward to discussing, the other topics tomorrow and on Friday. No final question? Then thank you very much to our distinguished panelists, and thank you to you for attending this press conference.